The first 30 seconds of this video pull you straight into the shadows behind one of the most legendary fighting games of all time, promising revelations about hidden mechanics Capcom never explained, unsettling character backstories buried in manuals and unused data, strange visual details most players ignored in the arcades, secret rules quietly manipulating matches, and the subtle psychological tricks that made Street Fighter 2 not just addictive, but almost impossible to walk away from, all while uncovering how a colorful, fast-paced brawler secretly carried darker themes, quiet cruelty, and design decisions that shaped modern gaming forever, making you see every Hadouken, every stage, and every character select screen in a completely new way by the time the video ends. Street Fighter 2 arrived in arcades like a lightning bolt wrapped in pixel art, presenting itself as loud, competitive, and instantly fun. Yet beneath the flashy special moves and unforgettable music lived a carefully constructed machine designed to control player behavior, emotions, and even frustration in ways that felt almost sinister once you start pulling the curtain back. Capcom did not just create a fighting game, they created a psychological loop where victory felt intoxicating, defeat felt personal, and the urge to insert another coin felt strangely inevitable. And this was no accident, but rather the result of design choices that bordered on manipulative genius. One of the darkest secrets of Street Fighter 2 lies in how uneven and intentionally unbalanced the roster truly was. Despite decades of fans arguing over who was top tier and who was fair, because the game was never meant to be fair in the first place, certain characters were designed to dominate beginners while others were crafted to reward obsessive mastery, creating a hierarchy that quietly pushed players to switch characters, spend more time practicing, and most importantly lose more matches before winning, which in an arcade environment meant spending more money. Characters like Zangief were terrifying to new players yet brutally unforgiving at higher levels, while characters like Chun-Li and Guile quietly ruled competitive play through speed, range, and priority systems that Capcom never explained in-game, turning knowledge itself into a weapon. Then there are the hidden mechanics that the game never tells you about, such as priority rules that decide which attack wins when two hits collide, invisible hitboxes that extend far beyond what the sprite shows, and recovery frames that punish players who act a fraction of a second too slowly, all of which made losses feel mysterious and victories feel earned without players ever fully understanding why. This lack of transparency was not a flaw but a feature, because confusion fuels curiosity, curiosity fuels experimentation, and experimentation keeps players coming back long after logic tells them to stop. The stages themselves carry an unsettling atmosphere once you stop seeing them as colorful backdrops and start reading them as stories frozen in time. Crowds cheer while fighters collapse unconscious at their feet, animals react with fear or aggression, and the world keeps moving as if violence is not just accepted but celebrated. In some stages, background characters visibly flinch when powerful attacks land, while in others they remain disturbingly calm, suggesting that underground fighting is not shocking in this world but routine. The game never explains who organized these tournaments, why these locations were chosen, or what happens to fighters who lose repeatedly, leaving a trail of unanswered questions that quietly darken the tone. The bosses of Street Fighter to take this darkness even further, because characters like M. Bison were designed not just to be difficult but to feel unfair, oppressive, and almost cruel. Bison's attacks ignore rules that apply to other characters. His movements feel unnatural, and his damage output punishes mistakes brutally, reinforcing his role as a tyrant not just in the story but in gameplay itself. Fighting him feels less like a fair duel and more like standing up to a system designed to crush you, which mirrors the way arcade games themselves often felt to players running out of coins. Another rarely discussed secret lies in the censorship and localization changes that quietly altered the tone of the game across regions, removing references to real-world violence, renaming characters to avoid controversy, and hiding suggestive imagery that hinted at darker themes Capcom was not ready to fully embrace. These changes created multiple versions of the same game, each with slightly different implications, making the original Japanese releases feel more raw and unsettling once you compare them side by side. Street Fighter 2 also hides a subtle commentary on obsession and rivalry, because the game rewards players not for balance or restraint, but for relentless aggression, perfect timing, and emotional control under pressure. Matches are short, intense, and unforgiving, training players to suppress frustration and double down on focus, which is why rivalries formed so quickly in arcades and why losses often felt personal rather than mechanical. The game turns competition into identity, encouraging players to define themselves by their character choice, their execution, and their win streaks, creating an emotional attachment that borders on unhealthy once you realize how deeply it hooks people. Even the sound design plays a role in this hidden darkness, because the sharp impact sounds, dramatic announcer voice, and escalating music all work together to heighten tension and urgency, making every second feel important and every mistake feel costly. The game rarely gives you time to breathe, pushing you from round to round with relentless momentum that mirrors the addictive structure of gambling, where highs and lows come fast and reflection is discouraged. What makes all of this truly fascinating is that none of it feels malicious on the surface, because Street Fighter II is remembered as joyful, iconic, and revolutionary, yet its success was built on systems that exploited human psychology with remarkable precision. It taught players to accept loss as motivation, to chase mastery without clear rules, and to invest emotionally in pixels on a screen, laying the foundation for competitive gaming, esports culture, and even modern live service game design long before those terms existed. The dark secret then is not that Street Fighter II was evil or corrupt, but that it understood players better than they understood themselves, using mystery, imbalance, and pressure to create an experience that felt endlessly compelling. It was a game that smiled at you with colorful sprites and catchy music while quietly daring you to prove yourself again and again, knowing that most players would accept the challenge even when it cost them time, money, and sleep. By the time you realize how carefully every punch, stage, character, and sound effect was designed to keep you hooked, you start to see Street Fighter II not just as a game but as a blueprint, one that changed how games are made, sold, and played forever. And that is why its secrets still matter today, because they reveal not only how a classic was built, but how the entire fighting game genre and much of modern gaming learned to thrive in the space between fun and frustration, mastery and obsession, light and darkness. If you enjoyed uncovering the hidden side of Street Fighter II and want more deep dives into the secrets, theories, and untold stories behind classic games, make sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a comment with your favorite Street Fighter memory or character, and share this video with someone who still remembers the sound of arcade buttons clicking late into the night.